All right, guys, welcome to a great topic on winter blues and seasonal affective disorder, which also ties into depression. And I'm Amanda Villarreal, and I am a nutritionist, personal trainer, and have been actively helping people with improving their wellness for over 20 years and their health. And I think that these topics that we bring to you guys each week are informational and educational, but we also want you to be thinking of how this information could really make a difference in somebody's health and life and giving natural alternatives. And we are advocates of trying to educate people on some other things that may be out there that they might not know about. And this quote you see on the screen, I love this, from Dr. Shackley, who is kind of the leader actually in what we see in a lot of our wellness products today. And I think this is kind of hitting what we're talking about here and giving you some alternatives. I never belittle the medical profession, but we are in two separate fields of endeavor. They are trained to treat disease, and I'm interested in building health. And that's our goal, guys. We want to be thinking of prevention and the long term. And that's why we're here, is to kind of learn some information and some tips and tricks and, again, tools that we can use to share with other people. And I think that this is actually really a topic that we probably all know someone that has dealt with some type of issue dealing around, like I'm kind of categorizing them all together. But if you see how the numbers here, when you look at depression, anxiety, seasonal affective disorder, it's staggering to know how many people this affects. And if you didn't know this, actually, antidepressants are the number 2 most prescribed medication. Next to cholesterol medication is number 1. So why does that matter? 2 reasons. Because one, it goes to show that anxiety and depression is a growing concern. And 2, people are oftentimes put on these medications very quickly because it can be a mask of symptoms. Now, there are, like we showed on that first slide, there are reasons that medically we need a lot of these medications, but we also want to know what can happen with many of these things and the side effects. And knowing that being on some of these things long term can really affect the rest of your life. So noting what are the differences and noting the different options out there. It is kind of interesting that women are affected way more than men with seasonal affective disorder. And depression, anxiety is actually pretty close between men and women. But the point is that it can affect everyone and anyone at some point in their life. And one of the really sad things about this too is many people do not realize the symptoms until it's too late. And this information, I hope, kind of helps bring you into thinking about how, some of the symptoms we just think are perfectly normal could actually be telling us and signaling that there might be something going on more around us or in our bodies and in our brain chemistry that we might want to start to be thinking about. Now, as we're getting into winter here, it's very common that we start to go into hibernation mode, right? That we all kind of turn into the place of where we do less, we don't see as much sunlight, we then develop more cravings, our habits change in how we eat more sugar, we have more refined carbs, we deplete certain vitamins way more. And that's even why I believe a lot of times our immune systems are so much more deficient in the wintertime, is because of a lot of this happens as we start to hibernate more. And we'll talk about more about some of the vitamin D here and how that's also a growing concern of many people are depleted in vitamin D, and 4 times more likely in women than men. So adding vitamin D can be a turnaround for many people's health. So now, as we get into understanding more too, remember we only have 20 minutes, so I'm just covering a lot of topics, guys. So as you get into the end here and you want to ask questions, please feel free to. But there used to be a kind of, I think, the idea that our gut health in our brain was connected was not always necessarily thought of as true. And now there's actually specific research that shows that the gut actually controls a lot of what happens in our brain. And why does this matter? Because when we have things that are out of balance, we start to notice these things start to happen, and we would have no clue that it could be stemming from our gut health. And if you're reading on the screen there, I think it's very fascinating of, if you look at there, things like serotonin and how much we talk about that in our brain, that 95% of it comes from your GI tract. And if we don't have a healthy gut microflora balance, everything can be affected, including our brain. So anytime we're looking at improving how we feel and trying to keep more of a melancholy, more of an even, place in our life, our gut health needs to be something that we definitely look at. I also want to highlight here really fast, but if your serotonin levels are off, look at the different diseases that have been related to low serotonin levels. Things we're talking about here, but look at what also is noted: depression, anxiety, addictions, digestive orders, migraines, autoimmune disorders, autism, cardiovascular disease, and osteoporosis. That is a wide variety of diseases. And again, very interesting to note that a lot of that has to do with what is going on inside of our body. So we can control a lot of this. And I think that that's why the more that we can learn about what the foods we're eating and things that we can put in our bodies can, again, have a direct correlation of what happens long-term with our health. So, we were talking about vitamin D here a little bit ago. And obviously sunlight is huge, and we would love to be able to say that we all get enough sunlight, but it's not necessarily the case, especially depending if, I think most of us here are in Michigan, so rarely the case. But vitamin D is being now more and more talked about because they're finding how many different areas of our body it's linked to. If I asked a lot of you guys on the Zoom right now, you'd probably say, oh, I heard vitamin D was good for bone health, because that used to be the main focus of what vitamin D was used for. But look at all of the things again, even things like depression, chronic fatigue, your adrenal glands. And this is stuff that has to be absorbed. So if we're not getting vitamin D, and we're going to talk about the different sources here in a second, but our bodies could be struggling, and a symptom is always a sign of something malfunctioning. So when you notice a symptom in your body, it's telling you something. It's not something to write off and to go get a prescription for and mask. It's to figure out what is actually going on that we can help to then be able to hopefully rebuild our health. Now, I always like to share some type of testimonials. I was going to have a live one tonight, but it ended up not working out for this person last minute. But I thought I would share one from Valerie. She's in Shackley here, and I think a lot of her story is relatable to many people. And she actually started with anxiety after she had her first child. And if you've never heard of agoraphobia, she was to the point of where she couldn't even leave her house. She developed these fears of things, everything around her. She couldn't go to certain places because she was just very, very scared. And it became a serious issue. And she was introduced to something called stress relief, which kind of blunts your cortisol levels. We're going to talk about that in a second. But it helped to at least get her depression and her fears under control enough that she started to be able to go out again. And, living in Wisconsin, similar to Michigan, that the depression kind of got to be a little bit better by using the stress relief. But then she noticed she had to add other things. And why am I sharing this? Because I think that it's great to note that there is not a quick fix for anything. This is a lot of learning what things work best for our bodies. But the great thing to know is there's a lot of alternatives, and that's what we're kind of introducing here. Mood Lift is going to be nature's Prozac. It's a natural antidepressant, and that can be a main focus of helping again with brain chemistry. So, and it's not addictive and there's no side effects. So she started with Mood Lift Complex, and she actually upped her vitamin D3 to enough levels now that she actually does not have any more symptoms now of her depression. And if you hear her story, she's amazing. She actually has 2 kids now, but it's definitely found, the benefits of using alternatives in holistic health versus in the route she was going, where doctors were telling her that she needed to go on actually not 1 antidepressant, but 5, which I have not usually heard of people being recommended to go on 5, but she was at that place in her health and her life, and just a fantastic turnaround. So stress relief is one I just mentioned here. And again, the reason we're sharing this is because we want you to know of options, and stress relief quickly calms and relaxes. This is a product that you can use and actually notice the results within about 20 minutes. It's very fast absorbing. So when we notice mood swings, even headaches, ADD, ADHD, things that, again, you cause a lot of fluctuation in mood swings, even poor memory. If you're going through a stressful situation, think of like, a death in the family, a wedding, something where you are working on overtime. This helps to blunt the cortisol levels to calm you down. So love Stress Relief Complex. And again, this time of year, stress can affect our bodies differently. And actually, stress is related to many of the things that we see today that actually lead us to the doctor's office. So I was reading an article not too long ago. It was interesting that there was a doctor that was saying he believes actually 99% of the patients he sees because it was a direct correlation with the amount of stress they were under. So stress led to eating, led to diabetes, or stress led to them not sleeping. And suddenly now they're going through depression. Again, our bodies are amazing, and they work in balance when we treat them the way we should, but we don't always. And there are situations that happen that we know we can't control, but we need to know alternatives. So B complex is another one. If you're not familiar with B vitamins, they're known as the happy vitamins. And your B vitamin levels, when you buy a B vitamin over the counter, oftentimes it doesn't have all of your Bs. This has all 8 B vitamins. And a good indicator for you getting enough B vitamins in your diet is actually your urine should be bright yellow, because that indicates that your Bs are getting absorbed and utilized in your body. So B vitamins too, when you look at where they come from, this has a folic acid coating, so it allows it to break down very quickly. And again, being nature-based versus synthetic coatings oftentimes don't allow the nutrients to actually get into your system. So in this vitamin B, if you look at the complex part of it, if you guys ever have looked at a label, look at biotin. Most B complex products skip out on biotin because it's more expensive. They only put a very small amount in it. So it's a good thing to note. You want to have all your Bs because that's what nature gives us, rather than extracting just one. So, and you can see some of the things too, you know, with sugar cravings. And again, I go for happy though. I think of this time of year, adding extra B vitamins, especially midday, great idea to do that, to keep those around. So Mood Lift Complex, I mentioned to you guys a little bit ago, again, kind of call this nature's Prozac. But this is a really interesting product that this does take a little bit of time to build up in your system. It's not going to be as fast acting. This is the only product that Shaklee has that we say you would not want to combine with the medication of if you're on an antidepressant, because St. John's wort can alter the effect of an antidepressant. And you really need to be working with a physician if you are looking to get off from an antidepressant, or you would like to, you know, switch over to using this. And if you look at, you know, some of the symptoms there, you know, if we can stop those symptoms before they get too far along, again, amazing how this could affect your life. So this time of year, depression symptoms start to, again, really exceed way more now than you see the other times of the year. So sometimes this is a seasonal one. I do have people that use this just occasionally, and I also have people that use this every day. Now, vitamin D3, I mentioned I was going to tell you guys the different types of vitamin D3. There's vitamin D3 and there's vitamin D2. When you see fortified foods, generally that's vitamin D2. Now, vitamin D3 is the one that our body actually absorbs well. And the vitamin D3 is a very inexpensive way to add, and you do not need high doses of vitamin D3 in order for it to be absorbed. It's the right type, and it's how it's released. So this is 1,000 milligrams. And, you know, for most people this time of year, adding extra, like I said, is not going to hurt. And if you look at what kind of happens in your body with vitamin D, we talked about bones here a little bit ago, but bones are actually always continuously breaking down and rebuilding. And it's interesting that as we age, that breakdown process actually intensifies. So adding vitamin D3 not only can help with moods and other things we're talking about, you know, here, but there's a side benefit of also helping with bone loss. So, you know, we love to see things that we're doing that don't have side effects, but instead have side benefits. And here's another one. We're talking about gut health and Optiflora and using a great quality probiotic. And we want to have something that we can rebalance our intestinal health. And you may have heard of Candida. That's a very common issue that it causes, you know, you have so much yeast in your body, and that stems from your intestinal tract. And the symptoms from Candida, if you look there, a lot of times you can notice swelling in the gut. If you've ever seen that, you know, people instantly lose their belly fat. It's crazy, but it can be even from getting your bad bacteria to be under control in your gut health. So, you know, this is a big one. Notice some of the symptoms there and how much of your immune system lies in the gut. So again, so many different benefits for probiotics, but this one in particular, this is kind of interesting. That it's actually been clinically proven through third-party tests to guarantee 90% of that bacteria is live when it reaches your lower intestinal tract. Why is that important? Because if it's broken down in your stomach acid, it does absolutely nothing for your intestinal health. So making sure you have something that's guaranteed to survive your stomach acid, crucially important. So this actually has a 3-part coating to it. It's called a triple encapsulation. So the outer shell actually survives your stomach acid as that gets eaten away. Then the middle coating actually helps with protecting against moisture and oxygen. And then that inner core is what has the live microflora in there and the bacteria. So it's pretty interesting of how, that process is very specific. So all probiotics are not the same. So one more area I want to get into here mentioning really quickly, and then we'll kind of summarize this as Omega Guard. Now, many people are very familiar with fatty acids and what they do. Yes, brain health, heart health, but every cell actually requires healthy, essential fatty acids, and omega-3s in particular. So Omega Guard actually has all 7 of your omegas that are naturally occurring. And again, anxiety, depression, high doses of omegas have been clinically proven to help with a lot of the symptoms of regulating what's going on in brain health. So adding extra omegas this time of year, again, another option. And it doesn't have to be this time of year, but when you're noticing even some of the symptoms of memory loss and, this is just another option. And most of us do not eat a lot of the things that omegas are very, high in, which is your fish generally, right? And nowadays we have to be careful because if we eat too much fish, we have to be concerned about the lead and the mercury and the PCBs. And this is guaranteed to be a clean source of it because it's molecular distillated, so it actually pulls out any of those concerns we'd have of any heavy metals. So, perfectly safe source, great for kids also. And love the fact that I said you can be guaranteed that you're not going to also have to worry about like the fishy aftertaste that, they found a way to get that removed and to give you only what you need from the essential fatty acid standpoint. So also anti-inflammatory. That's another thing to mention for omegas. I always think that's a really good thing to highlight, an anti-inflammatory. So if you get hurt, you notice swelling, up your omegas. That can really help to kind of flush out omegas. Think of omegas as your lubrication. It's thick and it will help to keep things moving. So blood around your heart, blood flow to your brain, all of that's really important. So, and that's what omegas are basically tied into. So here's kind of like a little summary of the products we kind of discussed here. And remember, you can pick, you can choose, but it's great to know all the options. And, whoever invited you to listen to the Zoom, we are more than happy to help you. There's a lot of information we can share with you. And I think this will give you some great tips and some ideas to start with. But again, this is a big topic and we don't have, too much time, but we just like to introduce some things. So I'm going to ask you guys now, if you have any questions, if you want to unmute yourself, this would be a great time to do that. So any questions or maybe something you found helpful or anything you would like to add, please do so. Don't be shy. I have to pick on somebody here. Yeah. Hopefully you guys all found it so fascinating. You're just so excited. You don't have anything to add. All right, I saw Chris unmuted.
Can you take too much vitamin D?
Synthetic? Yes, you can, Chris, because it can build up in your system. So great question. And a lot of that, I always tell people when they have the physicals to ask for their vitamin D levels to be checked, because if you are taking too much, it would show up. But you really cannot have the Shaklee because it acts like food. So it will just continue to be released as you don't need it. So good question. Good. Anybody else? All right, guys, we are right on time here. So we are going to transition here, guys, into our next topic, which is business training. But I do always like to just kind of highlight if there's something special going on. And I do think this is a great promotion Shaklee just launched for January, as we're going into business training here, that it is free distributor this month for any new person that joins Shaklee with any order. They can actually become a distributor. Also, any member that would like to upgrade, it is free this month. So just wanted to highlight that real fast because it's a great promotion, and also these success packs. So if you're looking at trying some options of improving health, these packs are a great way to go if you're just starting. You can actually get 30% off these product bundles. So there's a lot of them that are definitely perfect for looking at a specific targeted area of health. So I want to just mention that here real fast. So, all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording.